Hello and welcome to Out of State's DMing podcast episode. I put the wrong episode in there. Oh yeah, it's 32. No, yeah, I was right. Well, we're off to a weird start. Um, I'm your host, lluksblackheart. Joining us today as we'll be discussing 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons. Today's episode will be centered around feats. Yes, the lovely intuitive feats. And there's quite a bit to go over, but we're going to focus this episode over particular things such as I'm going to actually move the or it's not going to let me move it. No. But we're going to be focusing on talking about prerequisites, benefits, normal, and special, which are all things you have to pay attention to when you're trying to do anything with any feats, while it's a simple feat or a complicated feat. Another thing to note that when you're trying to figure out what feat or feats you're trying to get, don't just read the name and the brief description. Go look up the feat. For example, there's this section here. Now, I do love this section. It makes it real quick. It tells you what the prerequisites are, if there is any, and a brief of what it does. Now, for a lot of it, it's pretty straightforward. The benefit listed there directly tells you exactly what it does. But some of them, you need to go actually read it to see all it's entitled of it, in part of it. Some of it you think is super easy. There's a blind fight, reroll mischance for concealment. Yeah, but now you have to go look up what concealment is and how often that actually triggers. Because not all mischances are technically concealment. So you have to make sure that is this a concealment mischance or is this from some other source giving a mischance. And there's a bundle of feats. And because a lot of people just take what it says in the benefit and just boom. Like with a spring attack, what are you doing? The move before and after melee attack. A lot of people assume that you can do your move, do all your attacks, and then move. When it's like, no, you moved. You still want to get one attack, but it lets you do more movement. But you also have to go look up how much of your movement you actually get, instead of just assuming how much you get. Just depending on the person, because I've ran into people who will simply look at it and go, oh, well, I have a 30-foot movement, so I have to move less than 30 feet swing and then move the rest of that 30. Then there's other people who go, I get to use all of this. I get to do a full movement attack and then a full movement, and then they try to sprinkle in more than just double moving, like a ×3 or a ×4 run, when it's like, no. The feat doesn't let you do that. So you have to go look up what the actual feat gets. And some of the feats that require actions, like dodge, it is a free action, but you have to declare it on your turn. You can't trigger it on someone else's turn. It has to be your turn. People, for some weird reason, don't pay attention to that. It's the same thing for some of these things here, because again, people just see that and automatically run with it instead of looking at the feat, verifying if it's actually something they want. Then there's people who will try everything they can to ignore the prerequisites. Prerequisites are not just there as a immovable object that you have to try to work around. It's kind of like to stop people from being a little too broke too early, while sprinkling in pacing, because if you have to pace yourself to get to a certain point it kind of forces you to do forward thinking and gives you time to decide if you're actually going to want to go that route or not. Because at level 1, you may think that, oh, I'm going to want to go this entire right here. 3 game sessions later, you got a couple levels and you realize going that direction isn't going to work because what the party's doing, where the party's going, what the party's fighting, that those feats don't help you all that. They'll help over here, but you don't know when that's coming. Like spring attack only really works if you're in wide open areas, so you can actually move up, boom, and move. So you have to have proper spacing. If you don't have proper spacing, like a hallway of a dungeon, you could end up not having the option of actually activating spring attack because you can't get that movement in due to how confined the area is. Like leadership is probably one of the feats that either no one uses because they don't want to deal with any of the BS that comes with it, or it's something that players will literally do everything they can to utilize, so that way they don't have to actually do anything because you get a cohort and followers. The higher your leadership score, the more followers you get. And they'll literally just use the followers as cannon fodder to do everything, and that can severely bog down the game. Like, not partially, but like super, because nothing says, well, this is no fun, like a person showing up with 20 followers and then just having this 20 followers says bum rush through everything with the mentality of, oh, I'll just get them replaced if they die. It's like, what a way to make sure no one gets to do anything fun because you're ruining it with a crap ton of NPCs. Uh, then there's also like feats that take a little bit more work, like item creation feats. Those feats, a lot of people think that they get them and they can immediately just get rich. Completely and totally forgetting that if you don't read them, don't take them. Because they cost XP and money to create that item. Then it takes time to create that item. And then on top of it, you have to find someplace that's actually not only willing, but capable of buying it. So you can end up in a corner where you don't have the resources to make the items you want, nor the time to make the items you want, or the location to sell those set items because the area the party's in doesn't have a location that has enough money to buy it. They're only really good if you're trying to shortchange getting magical items. Yes, if you're trying to get some of the really good, really important rings, and you're like, wait, I have Forged Ring. I'm a 12th level caster. I have it. I'm going to go get all the materials needed to make this ring. Then I'm going to spend the time to do it so that way the party can have this ring. It is a great way to try to save money on magical items. But just with any sort of creation feature, while it be crafting or this, it takes money to create that item. And it takes time. It's like, last I checked, it was like for every 1,000 gold pieces the item's worth, it takes a day to create it. And because the XP costs, because yes, it does cost XP to do it, and it's different for what you're trying to make, you can end up going into XP deficit. On top of the fact that magical items require certain spells. So you may have the spell level, be the right class, but if you don't have the right spells, you cannot create them at magical item because you do not have the spells, which means you have to go out and buy a scroll so that way you can do it that way. So you can end up, by not paying attention, not create what you want to create because you don't have access to the magic it requires. Because some items require divine casters, some are arcane casters, some are, oh, this spell is across the board type thing. So it is a definitely a downtime thing. It is a XP drain, and it can be a gold drain because again, it still costs money to make it. Meta magic feats are in a somewhat similar boat of being difficult because there is no prerequisite to getting the feats. As you can see, dashes, which means if you're a spellcaster, you can from the get-go get any of these feats. The problem is, and this is where reading the feat becomes important, that if you read the benefit, like maximize spell, you maximize the variable numeric effects of the spell. So like a fireball that normally does a die 6 per level, instead of having to roll a die 6, you're just getting straight 6 points for every level you're at. So if you're 10th level caster, instead of it being 1 to 60, it's now just straight 60. But the catch 22, and it doesn't say is here, and this is where a lot of magic casters end up biting it, is because meta magic feats increase the slot requirement. So if you want a maximized any spell, that's a +3 to the slot requirement. So a level 3 spell, like Fireball, that you want maximized, is now going to need a 6th level slot for you to cast it. So if you don't have access to 6th level spells, but you have maximized, you can't maximize your Fireball. If you have access to 3rd level spells, you can maximize any of your 0. If you have access to 4th, your 1st level spells like Magic Missile or Burning Hands, and like so on and so forth. And all magic feats increase the slot requirement by some degree. Yes, you can mix and max and combine them, but you don't use whatever's higher out of the slot. You combine their slots. For instance, if memory serves, Silence and Still are a +1 to spell slot requirement each. So if you want to cast the spell without verbal and or somatic, you're going to have to take both of them into account. So if you don't have access to at least 2 spells levels higher than the spell you're trying to do it on, you can't cast it. Quicken, which is really good because it means you can get multiple spells out of turn, is a 4-slot increase. So it's definitely a big heavy hitter. Like Empower is like 2 slot requirements. Widen, I think, is also 2. So it's like either somewhere between 1 to 4, with a bunch of them being 2s. But you have to remember that starting at level 1, you're only going to have access to 1st level spells. So meta magic feats are only really good when you start getting higher level slots. So you have to watch that. The bundle of the prereqs for a lot of the stuff there is actually quite self-explanatory. Like, for instance, Spellmaster, you have to be at least a 1st level wizard. If you don't have at least 1 level in wizard, well, you can't take it. 2-weapon fighting, you have to have at least a dex of 15. So that's a pretty decent dex. You have to have a high dex. And then if you look at like greater 2-weapon fighting, you need a dex of 19, improved 2-weapon fighting, and a base attack of +11. So that's either an 11th level fighter, or a paladin, or a barbarian, because they are based on that. But you still have to have a really high dex, because a 19 is quite high. It's not impossible, but it is quite high. But you also have to have access to the previous 2-weapon fighting feats, the base 2-weapon fighting and improved 2-weapon fighting. So it's a lot of feats that you need to actually acquire to do it. And the easiest way to do it is fighter, because they get feats galore, but you still have to watch that. Other feats that require a lot of stuff is like weapon focus. You have to be proficient with the weapon you select and have a base attack +1. But if you want the weapon specialization, the greater focus, and the greater specialization, you need to stay as a fighter. Because, well, 4th level fighters get specialization, 8th level fighter for greater focus, and then 12th level fighter for greater specialization. And it's all still for this one weapon here. But you still need to stay focused on that one weapon. Where's yeah, it's like shot on the run. You need 13 dex, dodge, mobility, point blank shot, and a base attack +4. So there's 5 requirements you need just to have that one. And there's a lot of these feats here, and they're all pretty good. And if you're probably still wondering, but why put them behind prerequisite wall? Well, it's because they can let you do things that can make you feel broken. Like if you wanted to be Legolas. Point blank shot, far shot, precise shot, rapid shot, mini shot, shot on the run, and improved precise shot. Legolas would have all of those because of how good of a shot and stuff he is. But if you look at these secrets events where you need to get them, and what they all do, they all explain how well of an archer you can be. It's like, for instance, if you want to shoot into melee combat, you need precise shot. In order to get precise shot, you need point blank shot. So those help you not actually hit your allies, while point blank shot, if they're within 30 feet, you just have a better chance of hitting and damage, which is always good. If you have rapid shot, you do take a penalty to attacks, which isn't listed under benefits, and that's why I said you need to read the spell. Read the feat. Because you get 1 extra attack at your highest, but all of your attacks, including this one, suffer a -2 penalty. So you do get an extra attack, but you have to remember you're taking a not -2 penalty. But it's still really good, and you need that in order to get mini shot. Mini shot, depending on how high your base attack is, you get to shoot additional arrows when you shoot. So it's like at 6, you get to shoot 2 arrows. Because I want to say it's for every... for every 5 after that, you get to shoot another. So at 11, you get to shoot a 3rd one, and at base attack of 16, you get to shoot your 4th and final one. But if you don't read the actual feat, you're not going to know how many you can shoot and at what points you can shoot them. You're also not going to see read where it states that for every arrow you're shooting, you get a -2 penalty. So starting at level, that's a baseline with a base attack +6 shooting 2, that's a -4. If you're shooting 3, that's a -6. If you're shooting on 4, that's a -8. And if you're trying to work it out, it's like, well, why is that? It's because you're holding 4 arrows, pointing it back, so it makes it awkward and not real accurate, because again, it's not just shooting 1 arrow, you're shooting multiple at the same time, and it takes skill to do it. So if you go look up at people shooting more than 1 arrow at a time and try to use that as a reference point, that's what your character can do if you're set up correctly. I say set up correctly because the people you see shooting them in real life, they didn't start out that good. They didn't start out being able to be that accurate by shooting multiple arrows at once. It took them time. It took them effort. And that's the same thing for like shot on the run. A lot of people think that it's going to be real easy to run, shoot, and run. No, because again, while you're running towards them, away from them, or at some weird angle, you're not standing there and shooting. You're moving, which means parts of your body are moving. You can't angle the bow correctly all the time, and because you're trying to keep the shot on, you're kind of being rushed to shoot. Can people do it? Yes, they can. Is it something that's going to be real easy to do? No, it's not. Feats can also be called features, or just particular things your character can do that normal people can't. So, like I said on a previous episode, where your characters aren't ordinary people because you get access to things that make you not ordinary. Feats are the main thing that separates you, or that further helps define your separation between your abilities and a normal common person. There's a normal common person who picks up a bow. I mean, a normal commoner who picks up a bow and starts shooting it. He's not gonna be very good, because he's just a common folk. Now, if he was a hunter, or a town guard, or part of a militant force, there's a good chance he's gonna know how to use that bow, so he's going to be a better shot. But is he going to be a better shot with someone who actually has point-blank shot, far shot, or like precise shot and all that? No, because he doesn't have that. He can't make it shoot farther, like someone with far shot can. He can't pinpoint shoot it with shoot an enemy who's right there fighting an ally, because he doesn't have precise shot. He can't rapidly shoot a bunch of arrows because he doesn't have those feats. And it also comes like if you're trying to do stuff on horseback. There's mounted combat, mounted archery, ride by attack, spirited charge, and trample. If you're not trained to do that, you're going to find it very, very hard to do any sort of those actions while riding your horse. Not to mention the fact that if you don't even have the right horse or the right mount, there's a good chance it's not going to want to do combat. Just like we talked about with the skill handle animal, war beasts are a lot easier to get involved in combat than non-war beasts. These feats here for mounted-based combat are set up to help you not suffer penalties while on it because you're considered trained for it. So, like if you want to shoot while on horseback, you need mounted archery because you suffer penalties while mounted. That cuts them in half. There's also feats like greater fortitude, lightning reflexes, and iron will. Those give you a +2 bonus to the corresponding saving throw. So someone with great fortitude, as you can see there, gets a +2 to their fortitude saving throws. So they're more hardy. It's like having a better immune system. Lightning reflexes gives you +2 to your reflexes, and it means you're better at reacting to things. So someone who has fireball or burning hands, you're going to be a lot better at taking half that damage, or no damage if you're a rogue, because of it. And when it comes to iron will, it means you have a better fortified mind because you get a +2 on will saving throws that helps you resist mental effects. So if a vampire goes dominate, iron will, you have a +2 to your will saving throw, which means you're going to be that much better at resisting him. Here's another bundle of good ones. Armor proficiencies. Now, if you're like a fighter or a barbarian, if you're a fighter or a paladin, you're not really worried about these because you're getting those for free. But if you're not, you do have to stress it, because if you're not proficient with it, like it says there, benefit no armor check penalty on attack rolls. So if you're not proficient in, let's say, full plate, which is heavy armor, and you go to swing, well, it's -6 armor check penalty is affecting your to hit. So that's a big minus. And it's the same thing for shields. If you're not proficient with a shield, the armor check penalty of the shield can get in the way. Where is it? Does I like showing people things? Yeah, shield proficiencies. No armor check penalties on attack rolls. So, one of the reasons why it's important to verify who can use tower shields. Well, fighters can't. Everyone else is kind of boned in that way. And the reason why that's important to notify that is they normally get a -10 to their armor check penalties. So if you're not proficient with it, that's a -10 to your attack rolls. So even though it's like, well, I'm sword shield fighting, well, you're not proficient with the tower shield, so you don't know how to move the tower shield with your movements. And that's a big thing to remember, that a lot of these feats may seem like intuitive things people should just automatically get. Well, these aren't intuitive things that people automatically get. These are things that skilled people get. They make you more skilled and more specialized in wherever you're going. Because, like, in real life, who are you going to trust trying to fix your toilet? A plumber or an electrician? Both of them are good with their hands. Both of them know what they're doing in their respective field, but their skill sets and every corresponding thing they take put them going separately. Because a plumber's not going to know how to set your to deal with your electronical problems, because he's not an electrician. Electrician's not going to know how to properly cut down a tree, because he's not a lumberjack. A lumberjack's not going to properly know how to set off explosives, because he's not a demolitions expert. So a lot of things may seem like everyman skills, or like everyone should be able to do this. They're not, because it just isn't. So if you can't do something, do something. Look at the feats to see what feats are going to either help you or let you do it. Treat the feats as like, oh, here's a problem I'm having. I'm going to use this feat, and now that's not going to be a problem. Like, if you're not getting high enough on a bunch of different skills, well, there's a bunch of different feats that help with skills, like acrobatics, agile, alertness, animal affinity. Those are just some of the feats that give a +2 to 2 separate skills. There's also skill focus that does give a +3 to a single skill. So instead of going, well, this feat's here, this feat's here, this feat's here, I want something that covers this. Oh, take skill focus. Skill focus, last time I checked, it does stack with other skill-related feats. For instance, if you take skill focus with spot, you can still take alertness, because skill focus is giving you a +3, alertness is giving you a +2, so now you have a +5. And there's a bundle of different feats that do help one another out. You just have to either A, trust your DM on recommendations, or B, just do some simple reading. Just like when I was doing the skills, read the feat. Because, for example, if we just go straight into the first feat, acrobatics, feats like this are extremely simple and straightforward, because they're not complicated. Like acrobatics, +2 on all jump and tumble checks. Agile is for balance and escape artists. Alertness is for spot and listen. Animal Infinity is for handle animal and ride checks. Those are straightforward feats. I love straightforward feats. Everyone should love straightforward feats, because there's no conditions, there's no weirdness, they're not niche. They're just, you're going to be better at those skills. Armor check penalty, whether it be light, medium, or heavy, have a lot more to deal with them. Because you can see the benefit, the normal, the special, because it tells you who gets it. Light armor proficiencies for free, which wizards, sorcerers, and monks automatically have. All characters except wizards, sorcerers, and monks automatically have armor proficiency light as a bonus feat. They need not select it. So, right there, sorcerers, monks, and wizards, they don't get it because they're not normally supposed to be wearing armor anyways. And it tells you what it does, and then the normal for not wearing it. Medium armor and heavy armor have this same section here, because it tells you who gets it automatically, and it tells you see here, because they're all pretty much the same, what the preregs is. So you have to do a little bit more reading, but it still stays in the realm of self-explanatory. Athletics, super easy and self-explanatory. Augmented summoning. This spell not only has a prereg you have to pay attention to, and it's a very special prereg, spell focus conjuration. If you do not have this, if you do not have that feat, you cannot take augmented summoning. What augmented summoning does, and this is for creatures you summon, not creatures summoned through a magical item, not creatures someone else summons. It is your summon. So when you cast the spell, summon monster, or any spell that counts as a summon, that summon gets a +4 to its strength and constitution, meaning it can hit a little bit harder and has a little bit more hit points. And again, it's only limited to your actual spells, not something from a magical item or something someone else does. Only yours. Blind fighting. It goes into details on how blind fighting works. Just to go examples, like right there in melee, every time you miss because of concealment, you can reroll your miss chance. Roll one time to see if you actually hit. An invisible attacker gets no advantage related to hitting you in melee, so that's right there good. That is, you don't lose your dexterity bonus to your AC, and the attacker doesn't get the usual +2 for being invisible. On invisible attackers, bonuses do still apply for ranged attacks, however. You take only half the usual penalties to speed for being unable to see. Darkness and poor visibility in general generally reduces your speed to 3/4 instead of 1/2. You see hampered movement speed. So right there, if your vision's being impaired, you can still move fast. Invisible targets don't automatically catch you flat-foot, which is going to help you out a lot. And it says right there for normal, it goes into part of the normal rules and where to look them up for more exact details. Special, like the blind fight feat, is no more used against a character who is the subject of a blink spell. It was of no use against a character with the blink spell, which right there tells you it's of no use against the blur target. Which that tells you exactly that, hey, the mischance blink gets, because they get a mischance, that's a mischance they still get a keep, even though you have blind fight. Brew Potion starts to go into the exact thing of A, you need to be 3rd level caster, and B, how much it costs and how much the XP is. Because the base price of a potion, it's the spell's level times the caster level times 50 gold pieces. To brew a potion, you must spend 1/25 of the base price in XP and use up raw materials costing 1/2 the base price. So, right there tells you how much the potion you're going to make is going to be worth, how much money it's going to cost you to get the raw materials, and how much XP you're going to have to pay. Now, 1/25 may not seem like a lot of XP, but the more expensive the potion is, the more XP you're taking a hit. And the more potions you make, the more XP you're losing. So it's kind of like, oh, this only cost me $5. But if you buy 100 of them, $5 quickly turns into 500. Because again, you're you're spending a lot of you end up spending a lot at the end of it. So that's why it's important to read those feats. Like cleave, you have to have power attack and a strength of 13, so not everyone can do it. What cleave does is when you deal enough damage to make a creature drop, typically by reducing it to negative hit points and or just flat out killing it, you get an immediate extra melee attack against another creature within your reach. You cannot take 5 steps before making this extra attack. The extra attack is with the same bonus and at the same bonus as the attack that dropped the previous creature. You can use this ability once per round. But pretty much means if 2 creatures are adjacent to one another, you down one. You then, with the same bonus you use to down that creature, you get a free swing against the creature adjacent to it. If you have to move more than 5, if you have to do any sort of actual movement, for instance, moving 5 feet, you can't do it at all. It is a fighter feat. Combat casting is only helpful if you remember to declare combat casting. Because you have to be casting on the defensive. If you cast on the defensive, this feat gives you a +4 to that check. If you're not, well, then you wasted a feat because you're not utilizing it. So it is definitely a niche feat. Combat reflexes, intelligence of 13, and you get to pretty much lower your attack roll to add the same number as a bonus to your dodge. You can take the number cannot exceed your base attack bonus. So, for instance, if you have a you have a base attack of 2, that's your limit. You can't actually go to full -5 because you go whatever's lower, 5 or your base attack. So if you only have a 2, you can't go any farther than 2. But until your next turn, you're getting an additional +2 because that trade-off to your AC, so you're slightly harder to hit. Fighters get it as a bonus feat. Yeah, a character without combat reflexes feat can fight defensively while using the full attack bonus action to take a -4 in attack rolls and gain a +2 to his AC rolls. Yeah, so you have to go like fighting defensively and stuff like that, which are additional combat actions. Do it. So those are some examples of how some of the feats are real easy to get, real easy to utilize, while other ones take a little bit more effort and are niche. Like, for instance, blind fighting. If you're never running into things that are utilizing cover, you're going to feel that you wasted the feats. If you're never fighting anything that's invisible, you're going to feel like you wasted the feat because the feat's not doing anything because nothing's triggering it. It's like if you're trying to become good at summoning things, augment summoning is the way to go. But if you never summon anything due to you forgetting that you have to prep your spells, or you're just not, well, you wasted the feat. Same thing with any of the item creation feats. Yeah. And like I said, just like how like these starting feats here, any feats that directly correspond to a passive bonus to skills are constant. Other feats that require something to trigger them, like I said, like blind fighting or augmented summoning or cleave, they have triggering events. And if you never get them triggered, either A, you're forgetting about them, B, you're somehow losing them incorrectly, or C, like for instance, like Clave, you're just end up fighting things with way too many hit points, or you're never the one that actually gets the killing blow. Uh, so you kind of just have to remember that feats, there's just a bunch of them that sound cool, they look cool, they can do cool things, but if you don't have ones that work with what you're trying to do, you're going to be in a hitch, a stickler. You're not going to feel very good because like you're wasting slots. Um, but for the moment, that's going to do it for today's episode. Join us next week as we do some more talking about skills, and I'll go over not skills, feats, and I'll go over a bundle more of the feats because there's a bundle of feats, and I do plan on going over some more of them, so that way you guys have a general idea of how a bunch of the feats work. So remember, well, thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe.